Hello students, my name is Shayan Mitra. I am the faculty member of Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering of Greater Kolkata College of Engineering and Management. Today I am going to taking the class of signal system. Today's lecture number is 29. As we know, the subject code is EC303, and this is the continuation of the previous lecture where we have discussed about the region of convergence and the relation of Laplace transform, the region of convergence, and few properties also. So we're going to continue with, and we'll connect those dot to the inverse Laplace transform. Okay, so let's begin with the lecture. Okay, so let's begin with the property number 4 that we have discussed earlier. Three properties we have discussed. So the property 4 is if x of t is right sided, and if the line real part sigma 0 is in the region of convergence, then all values of s for which real value of sigma is greater than sigma 0 will also be in region of convergence. A right sided signal is a signal for which x of t is 0 prior to some finite time capital T1, as illustrated in figure 9.6. It is possible that for such a signal there is no value of s for which the Laplace transform will converge. One example is the signal x of t is equal to e to the power t square ut. However, suppose that the Laplace transform converges for some value of sigma which we denote by sigma 0, then integration of minus infinity plus infinity x of t e to the power minus sigma 0 t dt less than infinity, or equivalently, since x of t is right sided, the integration of t1 to plus infinite mod x of t e to the power minus sigma 0 t dt less than infinity. So this right sided signal is this. Now if sigma 1 is greater than sigma 0, it must also be true that x of t e to the power minus sigma 1 t2 is absolutely integrable, since e to the power minus sigma 1 t decays faster than e to the power sigma 0 t as t tends to infinity, as illustrated in figure 9.7. Formally, we can say that with sigma 1 greater than sigma 0, now integration of t1 sigma mod x of t e to the power minus sigma t dt is equal to integration of t1 sigma mod x of t e to the power minus sigma 0 t e to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 t dt less than equal to infinity. E to the power minus sigma 1 minus sigma 0 t1 integration of t1 sigma mod x of t e to the power minus sigma 0 t dt. Since capital T1 is finite, it follows from equation this equation that the right side of the inequality in equation this is finite. Hence, x of t e to the power minus sigma t1 is absolutely integrable. Note that in the preceding argument we explicitly rely on the fact that x of t is right sided, so that although with sigma 1 greater than sigma 0, e to the power minus sigma 1 t diverges faster than e to the power minus sigma 0 t. As t tends to minus infinity, x of t e to the power minus sigma 1 t1 cannot grow without bound in the negative type direction. Since x of t is equal to 0 for t less than capital T1, also in this case, if a point S is in the ROC, then all the points to the right of S, all points with the larger real parts, are in the ROC. For this reason, the ROC is in the case is commonly referred to as the right half plane. Property 5. If x of t is left sided, and if the line real value s is equal to sigma 0 is in the region of convergence, then all values of s for which real value of sigma less than sigma 0 will also be in ROC. A left sided signal is the signal for which x of t is equal to 0 after some finite time t2, as illustrated in this figure. The argument and intuition behind this property are exactly analogous to the argument and intuition behind property 4. Also, for a left sided signal, the ROC is commonly referred to as left half plane, as if a point S is in the ROC, then all points to the left of S are in the region of convergence. Okay, now the property number 6 is if x of t is two sided, and if the line real part S is equal to sigma 0 is in the region of convergence, then the region of convergence will consist of a strip in the S plane that includes the line real value S which is equal to sigma 0. A two-sided signal is a signal that is of infinite extent for both t greater than 0 and t less than 0, as illustrated in figure 9.9a. For such a signal, the ROC can be examined by choosing an arbitrary time t0 and dividing x of t into the sum of right-sided signal xrt and left-sided signal xlt. As indicated these 2 points, the Laplace transform x of t converges for values of s for which the transforms for both this point converge from property 4. We can understand the region of convergence for this part consists of a half plane is greater than sigma r, and for some sigma r for property 5 this value will consist half plane less than sigma l for some value of sigma l. So the region of convergence of sigma Laplace x of t is then the overlap of these two half planes as indicated in figure 9.10. This assumes, of course, that sigma r less than sigma l, so that there is some overlap. If this is not the case, then even if the Laplace transform of x of rt and x of lt individually exists, the Laplace transform of x of t does not. So yes, so this is the point. Okay, this is the signal and this is the xt. So it could be written here as a right hand side signal, left hand side signal. Okay, so by doing that we get the time of region of convergence for these 2 points. Okay, so region of convergence for this signal and region of convergence for these 2 signal. Okay, the ROC for x of rt in figure this and ROC of x of t, ROC of x of t, which is a combination of these 2 part, assuming the ROC is in an overlap. Okay, so this is the point that we are trying to make. Now let's go through an example. Okay. Let x of t is equal to e to the power minus bt as illustrated in figure 9.11 for both b greater than 0 and b less than 0. Since this is a two-sided signal, let us divide it into the sum of right-sided and left-sided signal, that is e to the power minus bt ut plus e to the power plus bt u minus t. So these are the points. Okay, the signal x of t is equal to e to the power minus bt for both b greater than 0 and b less than 0. For example, we get the Laplace transform of this part is this and this part of as this, and you also know the region of convergence. Okay, now all the Laplace transform of each of individual terms have a region of convergence. Here is no common region of convergence if b less than equal to 0, and thus for those values of b, x of t has no Laplace transform. If b greater than 0, the Laplace transform of x of t is this, and this is the region of convergence. The corresponding pole 0 plot is this with the shading indicating the region of convergence. A signal either does not have a Laplace transform or falls into one of the 4 categories covered by properties 3 through 6. Thus, for any signal with a Laplace transform, the ROC must be entire S-plane for finite length signals, and a left half plane for left-sided signals, a right half plane for right-sided signal, or a single strip for two-sided signals. In all the example that we have considered, the ROC has the additional property that in each direction, increasing and decreasing, it is bounded by poles or extended to infinity. In fact, this is always true for rational Laplace transform. So the property 7 is if the Laplace transform x of s of x of t is rational, then its ROC is bounded by poles or extends to infinity. In addition, no poles of x of s are contained in the ROC. A formal argument establishing this property is somewhat involved, but its validity is essentially a consequence of the fact that a signal with a rational Laplace transform consists of a linear combination of exponential. Now that ROC for the transform of individual terms in the linear combination must have the property. So the property 8 is if the Laplace transform x of t is rational, then if x of t is right-sided, the ROC of the region is explained to the right side of the rightmost pole. If x of t is left-sided, the ROC is the region in the S-plane to the left side of the leftmost pole. To illustrate how different ROCs can be associated with the same pole 0 pattern, let us consider the following example. Okay, so let's go through the example to understand this. Okay, so let's go through an example. Okay, so example, let x of s is equal to 1 by s plus 1 s plus 2. Now with associated pole 0 pattern in figure this, as indicated in figure, there are 3 possible ROCs that can be associated with the algebraic expression corresponding to 3 distinct signals. The signal associated with the pole 0 pattern is right-sided. Since ROC, region of convergence, includes the j omega axis, the Fourier transform of this signal converges the Fourier transform of this signal converges corresponds to the left-sided signal and to a two-sided signal. Neither of these two signals have Fourier transform since their ROCs do not include the j omega axis. Okay, these are the pictorial. The pole zero pattern of, for example, 9.2. ROC corresponding to a right-sided sequence, the ROC correspond to a left-sided sequence, the ROC correspond to a two-sided sequence. Okay, so this is the conclusion of region of convergence. Now you go through the inverse Laplace transform and go through some examples. Okay, so let's begin. Now, as we discuss the interpretation of Laplace transform of a signal as the Fourier transform of an exponentially weighted version of the signal, that is, with s expressed as s is equal to sigma plus j omega, the Laplace transform of a signal is x of t is x of sigma plus j omega is equal to Fourier transform of x of t to the power minus sigma t. Now, as we do that, we know that x of t to the power minus sigma t. We have already discussed all these points. Okay, so let's as we advanced for for values of x, we have got this ROC. We can invert the relationship using the inverse Fourier transform as we given in equation. We have already know what is inverse Fourier transform is. So using that, x of t to the minus sigma t can be written as Fourier inverse Fourier transform of x of sigma plus j omega, which can be written as 1 by 2 pi integration of minus infinity plus infinity x of sigma plus j omega e to the minus j omega t d omega. Okay, or multiplying both sides by e to the power sigma t, we obtain this value. X of t is equal to 1 by 2 pi integration of sigma x sigma plus j omega e to the power sigma plus j omega t d omega. That is, we can recover x of t from its Laplace transform evaluated for a set of values of s sigma plus j omega in the ROC. With sigma fixed and omega varying from sigma minus sigma to plus sigma, we can highlight this and gain additional insight into recovering x of t from x of s by changing the variable of integration in equation 9.5 from omega to s, using the fact that sigma is constant, so that ds is equal to j d omega. The result is the basic inverse Laplace transform equation. X of t, which is equal to 1 by 2 pi j integration of sigma plus j omega to sigma minus j omega x of s e to the s t d t s. Okay, this equation states this equation states that x of t can be represented as a weighted integral of complex exponential. The contour of integration in equation in this equation is the straight line in the s plane corresponding to all points s satisfying real s sigma. This line is parallel to the j omega axis. Furthermore, we can choose any such line in the ROC. We can choose any value of sigma such that x sigma plus j omega converges. The formal evaluation of the integral for a general x of s requires the use of contour integration in the complex plane, a topic that we will not consider here. However, for the class of rational transforms, the inverse Laplace transform can be determined without directly evaluating this equation using technique of partial fraction expansion in the manner similar to that used in to determine the inverse Fourier transform. Basically, in case of Fourier transform, we use the same similar process. In case of inverse Laplace transform, we are using the same kind of process. So through which, that's why you get this similar kind of equation. Okay, so as we have already discussed here, so for example, assuming no multiple order poles and assuming that the order of the denominator polynomial is greater than the order of the numerator polynomial, we can expand x of s in the form that x of s can be written here as that. For that, ROC of each of individual get this, and inverse Laplace transform of each of these terms can be determined. There are two possible choices for the inverse transform of each term. ROC is to the right of the pole, and then the inverse transform of this term is this, and right sided signal if the ROC is to the left of the pole at s is equal to minus a suffix I, then the inverse transform of the term is this, and a left sided signal. Adding the inverse transform of the individual terms then yields the inverse transform of x of s. The details of this procedure are best presented through number of examples. Now we'll go through few examples and we're going to understand what is a inverse Laplace transform is. Now suppose we got this value. Okay, to obtain the inverse Laplace transform, we first perform a partial fraction expansion to obtain. Now as we do that, we get this. We already know how to do a partial fraction. As discussed in the appendix, now we have already know what is partial fraction is. So depending upon that, okay, we multiply both sides, okay, and then equating coefficients of equal powers of s on both sides. Alternatively, we can use the relation. Using that, we get this value. Okay, now we know that there are two possible inverse transform for transform of the form this, depending on whether the ROC is to the left or right of the pole. Consequently, we need to determine which ROC is to associate with each of the individual first order terms. This is done by reference to the properties of the ROC developed in section this. Since the ROC for x of s is greater than -1, the ROC for the individual terms in the partial fraction expansion includes real value greater than -1. The ROC for each term can then be extended to the left or right or to be bounded by the polar infinity. This is illustrated here, shows the pole 0 plot and ROC for x of s as specified this point. So we can rewrite here it at this as this. Okay, it's a very similar kind of pole 0 relation. Okay, now the ROC is to the right of the both poles. The same is true for each of the individual terms, as can be seen here. Consequently, from property 8 in the proceeding section, we can know that each of these terms correspond to the right side of the signal. This is the right side of the signal, greater than -1, greater than -2. Now from this we can merge that, and we can obtain this final value. Okay, so this is the basic fundamentals of inverse Laplace transform. Now you go through a few more examples to have a deep understanding of inverse Laplace transform. Okay. Now let go through a few examples. Let us now suppose that the algebraic expression for x of s is again given by equation this. Okay, by that ROC is now the left half of the real is less than -2. The 9.58 is this. This is the 9.5. Okay, we use the same example. Okay, the partial fraction expansion for x of s relates only to the algebraic expression. So equation 9.62 is still valid. With this new ROC, however, the ROC is to the left of both poles, and thus the same must be true for each of the two terms in the equation. That is, the ROC for the term corresponding to the pole at x is equal to -1 is real less than -1, while the ROC for the term with pole at x is equal to -2 is real less than -2. Then from example 9.2 we get minus e to the minus t to the u minus t. Okay, Laplace transform is 1 by s1, this and this. So using that we get this, we can merge it and we get the same value. It's just basically checking that the inverse Laplace transform is really work or not. Now finally, suppose that the ROC of x of s is -2 real is in between -2 and -1. Okay, in this case the ROC is to the left of the pole at x is equal to -1, so that this term corresponds to the left sided signal in equation this, and while the ROC is to the right of the pole x is equal to -2, so that this term corresponds to the right side of the signal of this combination. Okay, and it will give you the same result. Okay, now we will go as we have go through the inverse Laplace transform. Now you are going to go through the geometric evaluation of the Fourier transform from the pole 0 plot. Okay, so let's go through it. And okay, so now as we see at the first section, the Fourier transform signal is a Laplace transform evaluated on the j omega axis, and this section we discuss a procedure for geometrically evaluating the Fourier transform, and more generally the Laplace transform at any set of values from the pole 0 pattern associated with the rational Laplace transform. To develop the procedure, let us first consider Laplace transform with a single 0, which we evaluate at a specific value of s. The algebraic expression of the sum of two complex numbers of s1 and -a, each of which can be represented as a vector in the complex plane as illustrated in here. The vector representing the complex number is then the vector sum of s1 and -a, which we see in the figure to be a vector from 0 at x is equal to a to the point s1. The value of x of s1 then has a magnitude that is the length of this vector, and an angle that is the angle of the vector relative to the real axis. If x of s instead has a single pole at x is equal to a, then the denominator would be represented by the same vector sum of s1 and -a, and the value of x of s1 would have a magnitude that is reciprocal of the length of the vector pole at x is equal to s1, and an angle that is negative of an angle of the vector with real axis. The complex plane representation of the vectors s1a and s1 -a representing the complex numbers s1a and s1 -a respectively. A more general rational Laplace transform consists of a product of pole and 0 terms of the form discussed in the preceding paragraph. That is, it can be factored into the form. Okay, x of s. One second. Okay, so to evaluate the x of s at s is equal to a, each term in the product is represented by a vector from the 0 or pole to the point s1. The magnitude of x of s1 is then the magnitude of the scale factor m times the product of the length of the 0 vectors. The vectors from the 0s to s1 divided by the product of the lengths of the pole vectors. Okay, the angle of the complex number x of s1 is the sum of the angles of the zero vector minus the sum of the angles of the pole vectors. If the scale factor m in equation is negative, an additional angle of pi would be included. If x of s has a multiple pole of 0 corresponding to some the alpha j being equal to each other, or some of the beta i's being equal to each other, the lengths and angles of the vectors from each of these poles or zeros must be included a number of times equal to the order of polar 0. Okay, so if we go through this example, we get that x of s is equal to 1 by s plus alpha half, which is real greater than minus half. The Fourier transform x of s is equal to j omega for this example. Then the Fourier transform is x of j omega is equal to 1 by j omega plus half. The pole 0 plot for x of s is shown in figure 9. To determine the Fourier transform graphically, we construct the pole vector as indicated. The magnitude of the Fourier transform at frequency omega is the reciprocal of the length of the vector from the pole to the point j omega on imaginary axis. The phase of the Fourier transform is the negative of the angle of the vector. Geometrically form, we can write x of mod of x of j omega square is equal to 1 by omega square plus half square, and x of j omega is equal to minus tan inverse by 2 omega. So it will be written here as this. Okay, so if we just go through that, we can understand part of this part. Okay, this is the part, this is the pole 0 s plane, is real plot, imaginary plot. Okay, the pole 0 plot example, this mod of j omega is a reciprocal of the length of the vector shown. Okay, often part of the value of the geometric determination of the Fourier transform lies in its usefulness in obtaining an approximate view of the overall characteristics of the transform. For example, in figure 9.16, it is readily evident that the length of the pole vector monotonically increases with increasing omega. Thus, the magnitude of the Fourier transform will monotonically decrease with increased omega. The ability to draw general conclusion about the behavior of the Fourier transform from the pole 0 plot is further illustrated by consideration of general first and second order system. So we'll go through the first order second order system to understand the importance of. So first we'll go through the first order system. Now, as a general example, let us consider the class of first order system that is discussed in the previous section. The impulse response for such a system is 1 tau e to the minus t tau ut. Its Laplace transform will be 1 by s tau minus 1 plus 1. The pole 0 plot is shown. This, note that from the figure the length of the pole vector is minimum for omega 0 equals 0 and increases monotonically as omega increases. Also, the angle of the pole increases monotonically from 0 to pi by 2 as omega increases from 0 to pi. Okay. From the behavior of the pole vector as omega varies, it is clear that the magnitude of the frequency response h of j omega monotonically decreases as omega increases, while h of j omega monotonically decreases from 0 to pi by minus pi by 2 as shown in the Bode plot for this system in figure this. Omega is 1 by tau. The real and imaginary, we will understand Bode plot later, so there is no point in getting into that Bode plot part. Okay, so up to this we are going to conclude here today's class. So in the next lecture we are going to discuss more few examples of Laplace transform and few properties of Laplace transform. Okay, so we're going to conclude today's lecture. Okay, so using that. Okay, so first we go through that Bode of the system in figure this, and also that omega is 1 by tau. The real and imaginary parts of this pole vector are equal, yielding a value of the magnitude of the frequency response that is reduced by the factor root 2 or approximately 3 dB for this maximum omega 0 and value of pi by 4 for the angle of frequency response. So this is consistent with our examination of first order system, where we noted that omega 1 by tau is often referred to as a 3 dB point on the break frequency, the frequency at which the straight line acceleration of the Bode plot has a break in its slope, as we saw in the time constant tau controls the speed of response of first order system. Okay. The pole of such system is 1 minus 1 by tau is negative real axis and discrete to the origin, that is reciprocal of the time constant. Okay, so through which we also go through the second order system. So in the next lecture we are going to discuss about the properties of a Laplace transform. Okay, so we are concluding here.